Hello and welcome to the Kit Locker, a podcast of Blacksite Media. We're continuing our review of reference pictures of the SAS SP team, and this video brings us up to the early 1990s, say up until around 1995-96, and what you'll notice is the equipment remains pretty much the same throughout this period. This first picture is from the Andy McNabb book Immediate Action, which many of you may recall was the follow-up to his bestseller Bravo 20. Immediate Action details his life before joining the British Army, his selection and entry to the SAS, and his time before and after the Bravo 20 mission. This picture appears to show the SP team around 1990-91 and is a pretty classic setup for people familiar with images of the SP team. And indeed, at one point, this configuration was even made into an action figure by Dragon Models in Hong Kong in the early 1990s, a 1/6 scale Action Man type figure. You can see the troopers here are wearing the blue Nomex GD Specialist Supplies assault suits with the ID window on the upper right arm, which here appears to show a red flash indicating the red team with white characters on it, presumably for team member ID numbers. The boots being worn are not exactly distinct from this picture, but you can probably safely be assured that a variety of boots such as Adidas GSG9 boots might be worn. Other boots in use at that time were the Dana Acadia boot and the Matterhorn Fort Bragg, which was a very robust and comfortable military boot, Gore-Tex lined, and indeed there was a copy that the British Army made called the Pro Boot, which people might have seen, but the original Matterhorn was a lot more durable than the Pro Boot, because the Pro Boot had the polyurethane soles like the GSG9 boot, which unfortunately are prone to just rotting away, which is something of a shame. You'll see here that the primary weapon is still the MP5, fitted here with an underslung maglite in a customised bracket made by Mill Arms of Leominster, a company nearby to Hereford. This is an adjustable setup so that the maglite can be zeroed to the user preference on the weapon. The sidearm is going to be the SIG 226 with an extended 20-round magazine worn in a Paul Evers leather holster on the right hip if you're right-handed, and on the left hip usually you would have a triple MP5 magazine pouch holder, elasticated retention loops, and a similar smaller holder for a couple of SIG magazines that would also be worn on a leg strap on the left leg, let's say, if you're a right-handed shooter. You can also see in the picture a couple of different comms ancillaries here. The chap on the far left of the picture kneeling. At the front he's got a Rakel Cougar fist mic that would be pretty much in keeping with the Rakel Cougar being used at this time after 1986-87 when it was introduced. But other people have the circular CT401 press-to-talk buttons, PTT buttons, which were supplied by Davies Industrial Communications of Wigginton in Yorkshire, who later became part of Selex, who are still, I believe, a large supplier to the British military. And this was a very versatile PTT which could accept plug-in ancillaries such as throat microphones, as you can see are being worn in this picture. It could also accept internally wired microphones for the S-series respirators, the SF10 IM respirator, and it could also accept externally body-worn mics, earpieces, bone conduction earpieces, and so on. You can see on the respirators that are being held in the picture that the canisters have a red tape around them, and this seems to be a standard British Army designation to indicate that these canisters are training canisters. The body armour being worn is likely to be that by either Bristol armour or Armour Shield, although I'm guessing probably by this time it would be Armour Shield. The GPV-25 vest or the REV-25 vests, it's not quite clear, but I suspect the REV vests are the more likely choice, and they could be in black or perhaps in blue, Sometimes it's suggestive of the chap on the left, at the far left, kneeling, that the body armour sometimes was issued in a blue body armour holder. This next picture appears to show a VIP or visitor to the SAS seeing a demonstration day perhaps, or taking part in a hostage extraction training scenario, and again dated, I would say, to the early 90s. Especially if you were around at that time, you may remember late 80s, early 90s, there was a bit of a fashion for men's double-breasted suits for business wear, and the chap on the left here is clearly wearing a double-breasted suit, so that dates it somewhat to my mind. The interesting thing about the trooper pictured here is that you can see a couple of small points of detail. On his left leg, the right as we're looking at it, you can see he's got an elasticated pistol mag holder. This is likely to be one made by Len Dixon, who designed his slightly differently from the Paul Evers ones, which would have been commonly in use at this time. So this just may be a holdover of some slightly older kit. The difference being that there is a pop stud on a leather strap, which also helps retain the magazine in place. The Paul Evers ones being made slightly differently, with either a leather or a Kydex cup to hold the magazine in place. The MP5 that you can see here also has what appears to be a blank firing attachment, which is screwed onto the lug at the front of the MP5 barrel, and you can tell it's there by what looks like a red band around the BFA, the blank firing attachment, which is pretty much how they come as standard for the MP5. You can see that this chap is wearing a Raykel Cougar fist mic clipped onto the loop on the left breast of the suede assault vest, and he's wearing the green leather aircrew gloves, again seemingly pretty standard throughout this period since the 80s and into the 1990s. The S-series respirator that he's wearing appears to have a canister which is not one of the more commonly seen NBC canisters that came later. This looks like it's what's called an L10A1 canister. That was a canister that was partly made out of aluminium, like the old S6 canisters, and partly made out of plastic, and looks very similar in some ways to the later L12 canisters that were made by a company called Sabre Safety from the 90s onwards, and were a large all-plastic NBC canister. Other canisters were in use, obviously, for protection against gases like CS and CN, and those were usually a slimline canister made out of plastic. And you can see here that otherwise the equipment is pretty much as before. And once again in this next picture, again, pretty much the same standard setup. This chap here has the pistol mag holder on his left thigh there. That appears to be the Paul Evers version, slightly different to the previous picture. All else being pretty much the same. He's wearing a throat microphone, and you can see that if you just look to his right armpit on the left, as we look at him, you can just see tucked in there is the Davies Industrial Communications CT 401. It seems to be a matter of preference as to where people wear their PTT, their radio mic buttons, and this chap is wearing it just in that position there by the right armpit. Some people seem to have clipped theirs on the front of the vest, either on the loops that were provided on the left breast of the vest, or sometimes actually down the middle of the vest in the sort of just at the top of the front of the closure of the vest, which is secured by Velcro and what are called lift the dot studs. This is a picture from 1993, and it's specifically of interest for the chap in the middle. He was a chap called Raymond Jackson, known by his pen name Jack, J-A-K, and he was a cartoonist for the London Evening Standard and various other newspapers. And again, you can tell by his dress that this dates roughly to the early 1990s. Those kind of slightly baggy men's jackets were a sort of an item of fashion that's familiar to the period. You can see here that the trooper on the bottom left of the picture kneeling has an MP5 SD6, the suppressed version of the MP5, and you can see some red tape around the magazine on his MP5. I have heard various accounts of why this is. Some ex-members have said this is to designate which team the user is part of. In this case it would suggest red team. I've heard other theories which describe the use of tape on magazines to denote different kinds of ammunition, whether live or blank ammunition, but I think I tend to veer towards the description of it as being aligned with a particular team. You can also see on the chap on the bottom right of the picture, he has red tape around the canister on his SF-10 respirator. Again, a standard British Army designation which seems to indicate a training canister. Otherwise, the kit pretty much as before. This is a picture which I only found relatively recently myself, and again is pretty much the same as the equipment we saw before, and from the background it appears to indicate possibly a maritime training or even operational scenario. The standout feature here is the leather shotgun shell bandolier worn round the waist to naturally accompany the fact that this man is carrying a Remington 870 shotgun, presumably as a method of entry role in his team. But interestingly, that particular shotgun cartridge bandolier looks pretty much the same as a standard civilian shotgun shell bandolier that you'll find commonly available. Once again, pretty much the same sort of equipment. A couple of points of interest in this picture. If you have a look at the respirator being held on the right of the picture, you can see, just if you appreciate the detail on the respirator's right cheek piece, that indicates that this is an S10, a standard British Army S series respirator. It also features the drinking tube. Again, to just emphasize that while it's commonly thought that the SF-10 was the main respirator in use with the SAS as a SF, Special Forces series respirator, it seems that whatever respirator was available to use was being used as well. So the S10 series were also available and in use. And if you look at this chap just around about where his breastbone is, in the centre of his chest, you can see underneath, just peeking out there, his body armour, which appears to have a blue cover on it. Again, likely to be an armour shield vest, I'm guessing, possibly a GPV 25 or an REV 25, the restricted entry vest, which I feel is probably the more common type of vest. But this one, as I say, is in blue, not necessarily black. A lot of them come in a charcoal grey black cover, but this one is in blue, very similar to what the police might use. Again, no particular set uniform standard. It's simply a soft body armour vest, and here you can see it in use with the SP team around the early to mid 90s. I'm erring on the side of this being slightly later, perhaps 94, 95. A couple of troopers in this picture here, posing with the background of a couple of old British rail carriages, presumably a training area dedicated for practicing rail carriage assaults. And again, in the standard equipment of the period, MP5 Mark II suede vest, a Rakel Cougar fist mic here on the chap on the left, and what appears to be, if you just look, there is a sort of what looks like a white, a couple of white straps that these chaps have got just by their shoulders. This suggests bungee cord, which is for retaining the Remington 870 shotgun on a flexible, elastic retention that could be easily adapted to user preference. The blue GD Specialist assault suits and so on the pretty standard ensemble for this time. You'll see that this chap on the left of the picture, on his assault suit, he has the little team window ID tags there, which appear to be blue, suggesting not unremarkably that this is a blue team picture. The man on the right of the picture has his arm on the shoulder of the man on the left, and he's wearing some somewhat thicker gloves. And although these are not quite clear to me, I'm wondering if these are perhaps some sort of use of gloves that were worn to protect perhaps against broken glass when effecting an entry through a window or a door with a glass window on a railway carriage. Just a little detail there that someone might be able to enlighten us further on, but that makes a pretty common sense explanation, I guess, given the scenario that's being suggested. And again, another set of pretty much the same equipment. This picture notable being taken against the wall of the CQB close quarter battle range, informally known to many people as the Killing House on the SAS base, where the SP team can practice its drills with live ammunition. Again, the equipment pretty much the same. Mark II assault vest, MP5 with underslung maglite, Rakel fist mic, S-series respirator, and so on. And here there appear to be three gentlemen who are up for a demonstration or maybe a hostage rescue scenario. The chap standing second from the left on the picture appears to have some goggles and maybe ear defenders in his hands, which suggests perhaps they have been inside the CQB range playing the role of hostages to be extracted. Of course, they could also be members of the military in civvy clothing. And again, the clothing seems to correlate with the period here that's suggestive of the early 1990s. And that concludes this review of reference pictures from the early 90s. We'll see you in the next video coming up shortly.